Hi guys, I'm Richard Various, and welcome to the first episode of Various Things. This is a weekly short format podcast about anything and everything. So this week's episode is about animals getting high. If you think we're the only species to use drugs recreationally, think again. Dolphins, reindeer, even jaguars love getting high, using mostly the same things that we do. This week I read a really interesting article by Australian Geographic on this topic. In the article, Professor Gisela Kaplan from the University of New England made an interesting comment. That it's quite possible that humans discovered various intoxicating substances by first observing their effects on animals, then experimenting on themselves. The article describes the behaviour of several animals who've been observed becoming intoxicated, including some instances that may have inspired our ancestors to try it out. This really caught my attention for a number of reasons, not least because I've always been fascinated by how and why humans become intoxicated, and how this has influenced human evolution throughout our history. So it turns out that dolphins use pufferfish venom to enter a trance-like state, then spend hours just floating near the surface of the water looking at their own reflections. This behaviour was first observed by filmmaker John Downer when he was filming a BBC Nature documentary. Downer apparently filmed the dolphins taking an unsuspecting puffer in their mouths and chewing the fish gently to extract just enough of the deadly toxin excreted from the puffer's spines to become intoxicated. The dolphins were even observed passing the fish between one another. This was interesting, but unlikely to be linked to human behaviour, at least not directly. So I kept reading, and I saw that reindeer in Eastern Europe love hallucinogenic mushrooms so much, they've been seen fighting over them. The reindeer have a preference for Amanita muscaria, the classic red-capped mushroom of Alice in Wonderland fame. Their human neighbours, however, will become violently ill if they just ate the mushroom raw, so to get around this, tales exist of Eastern European tribespeople feeding the mushrooms to the reindeer, and then drinking the reindeer's urine to experience the hallucinogenic effects. I dug a bit deeper on this, and these tales come mainly from Finland, where the Sami people would engage in the practice. According to psychopharmacologist Andy Lecter, the hallucinogenic ingredient in the mushrooms, two compounds called ibotenic acid and muscimol, are excreted unmetabolized, meaning that they can be recycled, so to speak. Andy, who at first didn't believe the myths, tells how he met with a reindeer herder by chance, who described his own first-hand account of the practice amongst the Sami. After feeding them the mushrooms, the Sami wait for the reindeer to urinate, then scoop up the urine-saturated snow, which they then melt down and pass from person to person. So this is pretty interesting, but even more interesting is how this practice exists amongst other tribes in the far northern hemisphere. Prussian pharmacologist Louis Lewin wrote in the 19th century that the Koryak people of Siberia would also ingest the mushrooms through urine. Lewin writes that resourceful tribespeople would wait outside huts where mushroom ceremonies were taking place. Then when participants would come outside to urinate, they'd collect the urine in wooden bowls to re-ingest. It's said that the effects of the mushrooms could be recycled up to 5 times using this method. But stoner animals aren't just a northern hemisphere phenomenon. In the Amazon rainforest, jaguars have been known to gnaw at Banisteriopsis carpi, which is an indigenous vine used to brew the famed ayahuasca drink. The big cats eat the leaves for the same reasons that domesticated cats eat grass: as a purgative to cleanse the digestive tract and rid the body of parasites. Like the effects of catnip on cats, jaguars display unusual kittenish behaviour after eating the vine. I've included a link to a video showing this in the show notes because it's a pretty funny thing to watch. Like the reindeer, it seems plausible that Amazonian tribespeople observed the jaguar eating the vine, then decided to try it out for themselves. It's interesting to note that the Turkana people, an indigenous tribe living in the northwestern Amazon, have a word for the effects of ayahuasca on humans, which translates to English as jaguar eyes. The link between animal intoxication and human intoxication is a fascinating one, and there are a ton more examples of animals getting high: wallabies, caterpillars, bats, elephants and monkeys, to name just a few. While we haven't been able to talk about all of them today, I'll include a bunch of links to more content in the show notes, along with a transcript of this week's episode on our Patreon page. If you've enjoyed this week's episode and want to support the podcast, check it out. There are great rewards for patrons, like access to exclusive content, extended patron-only episodes, and more, and you can support the podcast for as little as a couple of dollars a month. You can find us at patreon.com/various things. So until next time, this is Richard Various, and this has been Various Things. Bye for now.